All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking some seriously fascinating source material today that tackles shifting cultural expectations, but in two wildly different arenas: professional women's sports and the modern workplace. It is pretty rare to see a single interview pivot so sharply between two completely different cultural battlegrounds, but the through line connecting them is actually all about shifting ground and generational friction. We're going to break down the claims, the controversies, and what the source presents as some cold, hard truths. Let's dive in. So today we're hitting four main areas. First, a courtside controversy. Second, claims of a broader culture shift. Third, an abrupt pivot to the work-life balance debate. And finally, a long-term perspective on career success.
Let's kick things off with part one, a courtside controversy.
Our source opens by setting the scene at a recent Seattle Storm WNBA game. According to the interview, a group of teenage girls showed up specifically to support an opposing player, Sophie Cunningham. These young fans brought signs thanking Cunningham for her very public stance on protecting women's sports. It was a highly visible display of support for a player who has recently been incredibly vocal on the very controversial topic of transgender athletes competing in women's leagues.
Now, to really understand the friction that followed, we have to talk about what these girls were wearing. The source notes the teens were actually dressed in gear from a brand called XXXI Athletics. This happens to be a brand founded by the guest in our source interview, Jennifer Say, and its entire messaging is centered around advocating for biological women's sports. So these teenage fans were visibly signaling their stance right there in the front row, not just with their signs but with their apparel. And that visibility? Well, it caused an immediate reaction.
What is really striking here is the sheer intensity of the reaction this sparked. According to the broadcast, the female co-owner of the Seattle Storm allegedly approached these teenage fans directly and told them they were, quote, bleeping insane, among other things. The host notes that this heated courtside confrontation allegedly left the teenage girls in tears. It is a really striking micro-event that perfectly captures the extreme friction surrounding this whole topic. And this brings us right to the guest's highly polarized analysis of the situation. When the host asks why the biggest opponents to protecting women's sports often end up being other women, Jennifer Say outlines her specific viewpoint. She argues that the primary obstacle is what she terms white liberal women, claiming that this demographic has essentially been captured by ideology. She states her belief that this group completely misidentifies toxic masculinity, arguing that by supporting trans inclusion, they are inadvertently allowing men to steal opportunities directly from women and girls. But bringing it back to those teenage fans at the game, girls like Annalie Wilson, who the guest notes actually received an award for her courage on this issue, the source highlights a really deep sense of gratitude. The guest explains that these young girls have felt like they are fighting this battle completely alone, so having a loud, confident, and full-throated champion in a current WNBA star like Sophie Cunningham, it makes them feel totally validated. As the guest puts it, it is a massive vote of confidence for them. This localized incident leads us right into our second section, claims of a culture shift. The host points out that having this conversation so openly feels very different than it would have even 5 years ago, which prompts this core thesis from the guest. She states, "A culture shifting, it's shifting right beneath our feet as we speak." The guest passionately believes the tide is turning on the debate over transgender athletes in women's sports, and she actually brings receipts to back up her claim. To prove this ground is shifting, she cites four specific pieces of evidence. First up, she points to the International Olympic Committee making rules to protect women's sports. Second, she highlights the Women's Tennis Association announcing sex testing to protect the women's category. Third, she notes that 27 different states have now enacted appellate laws regarding this issue. And finally, she points out what she sees as a major corporate win. Despite all the controversy, Adidas retained Sophie Cunningham's shoe endorsement without canceling her. But despite that wave of evidence, there is a catching detail, and it's the number one. Because according to the guest, Sophie Cunningham is currently the single, absolute only competing professional athlete in a women's league speaking clearly on this subject. None of her WNBA peers have joined her yet. Because of that isolation, the guest offers a really strong warning. Do not get overconfident. While she definitely believes the cultural winds are lining up, she emphasizes that they have a very, very long way to go to build a wider consensus. In her view, the work is nowhere near done. Now, right at this moment in the interview, the source material makes a fascinating pivot. Let's move to Section 3, the work-life balance debate. We are stepping off the basketball court and straight into the cubicle. The host steers the conversation over to a recent comment made by Oprah Winfrey regarding young Americans entering the workforce. Oprah delivered what the host calls a dose of cold, hard truth, stating, "No work/life balance at 22, it ain't there. You are supposed to lay in the work."
So the crucial point here is this stark contrast in expectations happening right now in our culture. On one side, you have the alleged expectations of Gen Z college grads, expecting immediate balance and demanding no weekend work the second they enter the workforce at age 22. On the other side, you have Oprah's advice, which is echoed heavily by both the host and the guest. They argue that at 22, you aren't supposed to have balance. Instead, you are supposed to be laying in the work and earning that balance over time.
The host provides his own commentary here, criticizing a segment of the younger generation that he characterizes as having this give me attitude without actually wanting to work for it. He suggests these young professionals need a massive mindset shift. Instead of demanding immediate comfort, they need to view that intense work at the beginning of their careers as a vital investment, one that pays absolutely massive dividends down the road.
Which brings us perfectly to our final section, the long-term perspective.
The guest completely agrees with Oprah and the host on this, noting that she actually wrote a piece on this exact topic about 10 years ago. Her core philosophy is pretty simple. Balance is achieved over a lifetime, not in any single isolated moment or early career stage. If you evaluate your work-life balance on a random Tuesday when you are 23 years old, you are simply looking at it through the wrong lens.
Here is how she translates this into a practical roadmap. Step 1, you have to make early career sacrifices. And yeah, sometimes work weekends. Step 2, you use that foundation to build professional success while simultaneously navigating the chaos of raising a family, which she readily admits might make you feel a bit crazy sometimes. Step 3, if you keep at it, you eventually look back across the decades and realize you have achieved overall life balance, combining that career success with family closeness.
It really is all about zooming out. If you only look at age 22, all you see is intense work, sacrifice, and foundation building. It looks totally unbalanced. But if you look at a lifetime, that early sacrifice is exactly what pays for the career success, the family closeness, and the ultimate balance later on. You just can't have it all at once at the very beginning.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. We've looked at young athletes challenging the status quo on the court and young professionals challenging the status quo in the office. Both are causing some serious cultural friction. So I want to leave you with this question to ponder. As these cultural tides shift, how will generational expectations redefine both our playing fields and our workplaces? It's a massive question, and the answers are literally shifting beneath our feet. Thank you so much for learning with me today. I hope this explainer helped clarify this complex source material. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.